What's going on, folks, and welcome to another one of my Kulgurath world building videos. Today I wanted to show y'all the designs of some of the human characters as well as a little bit of their backstories. Now previously I shared with y'all some lore on the orcs, so if you haven't seen that one, be sure to check it out next. The first human character you see me sketching up is one that I made in a video previously, like last year, but I wanted to update his design to go along with the style I've settled on for all these character concepts. This is Ragnaroth, who is native to the continent of Skaldheim, which is this northernmost landmass up here on the world map. This region is themed a lot around like Norse mythology and such, so Ragnaroth here is very Viking-like. Humans in Kulgurath are the most diverse and well-spread race across the world, having settlements on basically every continent, though their numbers are much fewer in the Archaean regions to the southwest, which is predominantly inhabited by the elves. Those humans who inhabit Skaldheim are called Skalds, and one of their most distinguishable traits from the other groups of humans is that they are physically the largest and strongest of them all. While your average full-grown human male would be just around 6 feet, and a female being just under 5.5 feet, the Skald males average well over 6.5 feet, with the females being over 6 foot tall. According to these Skald legends, this increase in size is due to the fact that their ancient ancestors interbred with a now extinct race of giants who once shared the lands with them. In terms of societal structure in Skaldheim, it is ruled over by the Dragon King and Queen, with different territories beneath them being governed by Jarls. Ragnaroth here is the Jarl of the Frostfang, which is a clan located on the eastern side of the region that is filled with dense coniferous forests. While the central and southern areas of Skaldheim are more industrious, with massive cities built of iron and fire, the peoples of the eastern forests are more closely aligned with nature, building smaller settlements consisting of lots of agriculture. The Frostfang are amazing hunters and perfectly capable of surviving the harsh winters, even when solo trekking throughout the lands. Their name comes from their close bond to the frost wolves of the region, who they have domesticated, using them as loyal companions to assist in hunts, as well as protect their settlements from outside threats. Now, the way that the Jarl of the Frostfang is chosen isn't by some lineage or even by the king, but rather they are chosen by the old god known as Fenrithir. When the time comes to appoint a new Jarl, the people of the Frostfang will host a grand ceremony where all the folks from the villages of the region will gather and bring offerings of all kinds. It's a whole festive scene of food and drink, music and dance, and they party harder than I did back in my prime days of degeneracy. During this great ceremony, the old god Fenrithir is summoned forth and selects the chosen one, blessing them with a portion of his divine power as well. These being things like enhanced physical abilities like strength and speed, enhanced instincts like that of a frost wolf so he can smell and track things better, and some ice elemental abilities as well. Now, in terms of like what you would classify him in terms of like, like an RPG class type, Ragnaroth here would be a berserker. And berserkers are fueled by rage, so the angrier he gets, the more vicious he becomes. I took inspiration from a lot of my favorite fictional characters, like Wolverine from Marvel, Kratos from God of War, Beowulf, and Ragnar Lothbrok. Great show, love Vikings back in the day. Also, for some more world lore for y'all that ties back to a creature from the Kulgurath bestiary. If y'all remember the intel on the werewolf and how I talked about lycanthropy being a disease of unknown origin, well, it actually all ties back to the old god Fenrithir. I haven't fleshed out his design yet, but there is an evil character in this world known as the Mad Alchemist, who's like this twisted, freaky scientist that performs all sorts of crazy experiments. And one of these experiments was that he was able to acquire a sample of blood from Fenrithir, and through his dark alchemical experimentations, he created the disease of lycanthropy. He also plays a role in another character story arc that I'll be showing off in this vid as well, so stay tuned for that. And here we have the finished concept art piece. Turned out pretty cool if I do say so myself. And with Ragnaroth complete, let's go ahead and move on to the next human character. So this character here is a necromancer, but I didn't want to go with the stereotypical route for her design with the dark robes or any sort of bone-plated armor or that spectral undead green color scheme. And instead, you'll see that I decided to take some inspiration from a more Mesopotamia or ancient Egypt-based aesthetic since I've always sort of associated necropolis with those cultures because of like the mummy films, which were some of my childhood favorites, and just archaeology in general when it comes to exploring ancient tombs and all that kind of cool shit. Her name is quite the exotic one, pronounced Yanni-Ra. You know, you can roll that R real nice and fancy like Ra, or you can just, if you just want to pronounce it like a country bumpkin, you can just give it the good old Yanni-Ra. Ain't no biggie, brother. And actually with this one, you'll be seeing two different characters. Well, one is human, and the other is an undead monstrosity that she summoned from the grave, which I felt necessary to design since she is a necromancer after all. So you'll be seeing that after we finish up Yanni's design here. A little bit of her character lore: she was born over on the continent of Sundara, and her parents were basically like missionaries, and so they moved from there all the way over to the continent of Arathia to serve at this holy site known as the Ivory Sanctum. This is an ancient city filled of priests and priestesses, and the purpose of this place is to kind of serve as somewhere where the old and sick and dying go to be taken care of and prepare them for their passing into the afterlife. And as such, there is a massive necropolis at the core of this old sanctum. It's definitely not a party town, if you know what I'm saying. It's a little somber, to say the least, okay? So her parents served as part of the priesthood here, but tragically died as a dark plague passed through the region, leaving Yanni an orphan to be raised by the sanctum, and in turn she would come to take after their footsteps and serve here as a priestess herself. So as time went on and homegirl here was doing her thing, one day a broken and dying woman would arrive at the steps of the Ivory Sanctum, but she wasn't alone. In her shaky arms, wrapped in blankets, was a baby boy. This woman was delirious and mostly unresponsive to the aid given by Yanni-Ra and the others of the priesthood. The only thing she could utter from her quivering lips before passing was the name of her newborn son, Tomlin. Our character Yanni here would take it upon herself to raise a child, as she felt a connection since she herself was an orphan. And so the years would go by, and Yanni-Ra and little Tom bonded like mother and son, full of love and joy. Sure, he was a rambunctious little shit, but he was her rambunctious little shit. Unfortunately, this wouldn't come to last forever, as Tomlin would eventually succumb to a very similar disease that had taken Yanni's parents from her. And despite all her wisdom and powers given to her by the holy light that she had dedicated her life to, she was unable to save the boy. After going through yet another horrific event, this traumatized her to the point of absolute insanity. Now, with the Ivory Sanctum basically being a city of the dead, deep within the chambers below, sealed away from all those who dwell within its walls, are these powerful artifacts which only the leaders of this priesthood have access to. And one of these artifacts is a forbidden book that is said to hold the secrets of bringing a soul back from the dead. In her manic state, Yanni-Ra would devise a plan and sneak her way into the locked chambers below to acquire this book in the hopes of raising Tomlin from the afterlife. This powerful ritual would prove to be far beyond her control, and what she called forth from the grave was not the precious child as he looked during life, but rather a monstrous amalgamation of darkness. Which brings us to the concept art for Tomlin, the resurrected zombie. Now, those of you who are subscribed to the channel have most likely seen a previous video where I introduced y'all to the undead creatures known as grave lords. These unholy beings are one of the most powerful entities that a necromancer can raise from the grave as a minion. Rather than just being a single zombie, they're a massive beast comprised of the remains of many corpses fused together into an undead golem, basically. The more powerful the spell and the more bodies buried beneath the ground, the larger the grave lord. And since the Ivory Sanctum is a necropolis, you can probably guess how gargantuan of a creature this will be. One of the key design features of the grave lord is the tombstones that align their backs like the plates of a stegosaurus, but in this case, little Tom here has an entire field's worth of sepulchers and such on his back. Now, going back to Yanni-Ra, her mind is so far gone that she still sees this horrid thing as her little boy. So yeah, these characters have a pretty tragic story, to say the least. And with Yanni-Ra and Tomlin's concept complete, we'll go ahead and move on to another character with a less than happy backstory, so let's get to it. Now, this dude here is actually a character idea of mine from like a decade ago, and I felt it would be cool to actually do something with him instead of leaving him out there on the bench. So we're bringing him into the starting lineup of the world of Kulgurath. So let's go over a little bit of his lore, and I'll try to stay in my old western accent the entire time. So let's see how this goes, ladies and gents.
one of the most notorious gunslinging bandits west of Hyloria, Silas Slade's story is one of adventure and tragedy. For years, he and his gang robbed hundreds of stagecoaches throughout the Badlands and West Wind Plains. Despite numerous captures and hanging attempts, Slade always found a way to cheat death. However, one heist in particular would end up bearing a dire consequence. This unusual stagecoach contained precious cargo that was in transit to the psychotic being known as the Mad Alchemist. Learning of his valuable goods being stolen, the alchemist would seek his revenge by having Slade and his wife abducted and brought into his lab to perform dark experimentations on them. Slade would become victim to the Mad Alchemist's tests of stripping a soul from one's living body and implanting it into the carcass of a stitched-together abomination. With the transfer of success, the alchemist would then continue Slade's torture by having him bound and hung from a post in the fields like a hapless scarecrow, unable to die while being trapped in his new prison of a body. The days turned to weeks, the weeks turned to months. He was forever tormented at the thought of what twisted fate befell his beloved wife. Until one day, a particular crow flew down and perched upon his shoulder, pecking away at one of the ropes binding his arm, thus allowing Slade to free himself. Since his escape, Silence has spent every waking moment attempting to chase down the wretched Mad Alchemist and enact his vengeance upon the maniacal villain.
So that's his little backstory. Obviously we got some inspiration from old Frankenstein's monster with this one. So he's basically this scarecrow-looking golem with the soul of a man trapped inside. You know, fun stuff, you know? But I'm happy I finally get to have this old idea established into something that I've been working on with my world-building series here. So, you know, it's cool how things come full circle from time to time like that.
And with old Silas Scarecrow Slade complete, we'll go ahead and take a gander at the final character of today's video.
Now, this one might be my favorite human character design so far, just because he's the embodiment of all the things I like the most. So this dude's name is Thorok, the Thunder King. He belongs to a group of humans who live over in western Terracon in the region known as the Kangas Expanse, which I've described multiple times in the past as being heavily themed around things like barbarians and nomadic tribes. And they're not like primitive, but they aren't really the industrious types. Thorok in particular is inspired by characters like Conan, just a straight beefed up, no bullshit taken alpha conqueror, you know what I'm saying? If we're choosing what sort of RPG character we'd be picking, my typical choices are heavy-duty melee characters who wield massive swords or axes or hammers. That's what I love. I'm never the healer or the mage or the ranger or the assassin or druid or things like that. I'm that character who's either rocking heavy plate armor or just like some damn loincloths and spiky pads here and there, where the last thing you see are these rippling striations as I decapitate you with my battle axe or sword, okay? No mercy here, baby. We go hard in the paint, alright? But yeah, for his backstory, he's kind of got that more classic hero's tale that is as old as time. He was a young warrior who sought after glory and wanted to slay the beasts that others could not. There was an old king in the Expanse who had the most wealth and power in the region. But his kingdom was constantly under attack by the most feared Brutonitrus Rex in all of the lands. Now, this was not something that the peoples of these lands ever had to contend with, as the B-Rex species has never been known to venture outside the northern steppes. None of the king's men were capable of slaying the beast, and so, in his desperation, he made it be known throughout the lands that any who could rid his kingdom of this monstrous threat would be worthy of taking his daughter's hand in marriage and assume the throne. Countless warriors from far and wide would take on this dangerous quest, but one after another, they fell to the voracious beast. And obviously, y'all see where this is going. Thorok was the one who ended up slaying the B-Rex and was thus crowned king. His title of Thunder King and his armor design are based off that of the B-Rex, so it's got a little bit of that, Monster Hunter style aesthetic, which I really enjoyed drawing. Now, a long-term plan I have with the Kulgurath series is to expand from just doing these like time-lapse concept videos and actually start doing some short stories about the characters, kind of like mini episodes. I'm not going to do like an animation because I just don't have that amount of time to dedicate to this, But what it will be is kind of like a storyboard, comic book like panel scenes that I'll narrate and tell their stories with like fully fleshed out art. And Thorok's quest to become king is going to be the first one I end up doing. So there will be more in his storyline than just simply, running over to the B-Rex and killing it and then, coming back and becoming king. So there's going to be some trials and tribulations along the way that he has to go through before even encountering his main foe. So I don't want to fully divulge his whole journey here in this video. I do still have like over 30 different characters in total that I want to have concepts for. But the narrated short stories are what like my next big goal is for the world of Kulgurath. And what I'll be able to do with all those scenes from the videos is incorporate them into another book, because I want my next book that I publish to be something other than just a bestiary like my first one was, which is available worldwide on Amazon for all y'all newcomers here. Gotta get that little plug in, But yeah, here's the final concept art piece for Thorok the Thunder King. Also, here's an extra for you as well. This is his Grave Tusk Mammoth mount, also decked out in B-Rex style drip. The Mammoth plays a part in his questline as well, but you'll just have to wait to learn more in the future. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Do me a solid, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like the content and want to see more. You can also become a member of the channel if you want to help further support my work and have access to the entire library of my drawing live streams here on the channel. But yeah, that's it for this one, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.